Did the Democrats lose because they weren't liberal enough? Or did the Democrats lose because they were too liberal? Or did the election results have nothing to do with policy nuances and have everything to do with record high unemployment, near collapse of the banking cartel, and partisan gridlock? The answers to those questions will set the guideposts for the Democratic Party going forward. Joining me now, our former U.S. Senate Majority Leader Tom Daschle and Adam Green, co-founder of the Progressive Change Campaign Committee. Senator Daschle, it is an honor to have you at the table. We used to sit at tables in the Senate trying to figure out how to go forward. Wooden tables, not these high-tech plastic things. How do the Democrats go forward from here, and is there a message in this result that says they were either too liberal or not liberal enough?
Well, Lawrence, I think your characterization as the alternative to that question, which is the economy, the unemployment levels, the frustration people have towards Washington today, had everything to do with the way the election turned out. We were the majority party in both the House and the Senate and the White House. They were looking at us to produce the kind of results they wanted. We haven't seen a lot of them yet. My view is we've done a lot more than we get credit for, and I think over the next couple of years we're going to be able to demonstrate that what we did was very good for this country, and it will continue to grow as a platform and as an agenda for us as we look forward. But that's what it was. It wasn't the nuanced question that you posed at the beginning.
The economy more than anything else.
Absolutely.
The record high numbers.
No question. Unemployment as high as it is, the
double what it was in '94 when you witnessed this same kind of collapse for the Democrats in the election.
Exactly. What we don't get credit for, as you've so well articulated, is the fact that it could have been 20%. It could have been something much higher. But a bridge that doesn't collapse doesn't make news. We've saved the bridge from collapsing. We don't get credit for that. But we've got to continue to work, stick with our principles, and try to find common ground.
Adam Green, you worked hard this year to try to push Democratic candidates in a more progressive direction and try to support and actually support strongly Democratic candidates who went in a fully progressive direction. Do you have any successes to point to last night?
Well, we're very happy that someone like Raul Grijalva, the chairman of the Progressive Caucus, survived a close challenge and won. But I just want to say something. You know, Senator Daschle is right, I think, that voters were looking to Democrats to lead, and they specifically were looking for them to pass, quote, change we can believe in. But the reason that Democrats lost was because Democrats did not fight hard enough for popular progressive change, change that would actually inspire former Obama voters to come back out to the polls. And that's why we saw a dramatic decrease in the number of young people that voted yesterday. Obama voters weren't out there again. And I think that, you know, the thing that's really important to realize is that on an issue like the public option, an issue that the New York Times said in June of 2009 had the support of over 80% of Democrats, over 70% of independents, and at that point, 50% of Republican voters. When Democrats failed to really fight for that, well, that's the way that you lose your base. That's the way that you lose independents who voted for Obama. And I think we saw the result of that yesterday.
Adam, so you're saying that because the Democrats didn't get the public option, liberals and other voters who would vote for Democrats stayed home and decided they would be perfectly happy to see Republicans win an election because the Democrats didn't get the public option?
I wouldn't put it like that. Look, the public option was one example that I used. The same goes with Wall Street reform. Nothing can be more popular than taking on the big banks, breaking up the big banks, frankly, throwing Wall Street executives in jail after what they did. We've polled on it. It's immensely popular across the political spectrum. Democrats never fought for that. And I'm not saying that people stayed home as some kind of protest. What I'm saying is, as Senator Daschle said, people are in a tough economic time. People live busy lives. And some people just thought, you know what? This is not registering enough on my radar to be inspired to come out to vote. I'm going to work my 2 jobs and make dinner for my kids. And they weren't feeling the change we can believe in spirit that they had 2 years ago. If Democrats had fought for bold change, things would have been different, and Democrats would have lost a lot less seats last night. Okay,
Senator Daschle, I want to look at one of our exit poll results, which says that 56% of the voters who voted yesterday, 56% of them believe that government is doing too much. Too much. So when Adam says they should have done more in banking regulation, when Adam says they should have done more in health care, 56% say government's doing too much, 38% say government should do more. So, Adam, as far as I can tell, I'm going to ask Senator Daschle about this, but as far as I can tell, in interpreting this exit poll data, it seems to me, Senator, that the position Adam's advocating is supported by 38% of the electorate. And how do you win elections with that?
Well, I think Adam's right in that we didn't have the energy level that we had 2 years ago, Lawrence, and I think that was a factor. We don't have the kind of energy level, and if we're going to win elections in the future, we're going to have to ignite and energize our base and those that we want to have working for us. But I think a big debate that continues to go on and play itself out with regards to health care or the economy or any one of a number of issues is what is the role of government today? And I think that's really what this is talking about. We don't want as much government, in part because they are not convinced that government can provide the solutions. I think that's part of the message of the progressive movement and the Democratic Party. We've got to demonstrate, just as we have over history, that government can play a very vital role, a very important role, a constructive role in solving some of the problems our country is facing today.
Adam, I look at the electorate in the practical form of who actually does show up. So I'm not one who sits here and says, oh, here's who should have shown up or could have shown up. The self-identification of the voters who showed up to vote, the ones who actually count, the ones who show up to vote yesterday, are 41% self-identify as conservative, 39% self-identify as moderate, leaving 20% self-identifying as you do and as I do as liberals. How can you win an election based on appealing to 20% of the electorate?
All right, well, Lawrence, as much as you know I really respect you, I think right there you kind of peddled two false pieces of DC conventional wisdom that just kind of honestly misinforms people who are watching. Number one is the idea that we only should look at a poll of those who showed up yesterday. If you listen to my point, what I was saying was progressives have been urging Democrats for the last 2 years to be bold, to fight the fight on economic populism issues where the public overwhelmingly agrees with you, like taking on the big banks, taking on the insurance companies. And if you do, the young people who voted for President Obama will come back to the polls. The Obama voting independents, many of whom didn't show up yesterday, while the McCain voting independents did, will come back to the polls. So it's extremely relevant who votes, and it's extremely relevant that progressives have been urging Democrats to make sure that people are really inspired to vote. On the second point, we've done polling on this, and honestly, when you ask even the most liberal person, are you a liberal, nobody says they're a liberal. The reason is that Republicans did a very good job of scarring the term liberal in the 80s and the 90s. Most people who support a public option, again, we did the polling, most people who want real corporate accountability call themselves a moderate. It's cool to say you're a moderate. Some people even say they're conservative because they are fiscally responsible. I think I'm fiscally responsible, so I would call myself fiscally conservative maybe. But those labels are false. The question is, where do they stand on the issues? And when Democrats derive an entire political strategy based on a weird label question in a poll, as opposed to looking at the question in a poll that shows that over 80% of Democrats, over 70% of independents, and 50% of Republicans supported the public option in June of 2009, well, that's the basis of some of their problems. And that's why progressives are urging Democrats, be bolder, fight stronger. That's the key to political success.
Senator Daschle, neither party can win an election with with just an electorate of their own party. Again, to the exit polls, the voters yesterday identified themselves 38% as Democrats, 38% as Republicans. No winning numbers in those kinds of, in that group. 28% independents. The election was won with independents, with people who consciously refuse to call themselves Republicans or Democrats. How do you appeal? How do you get the independents in the next election to go for Democrats?
Well, Lawrence, I think that's really the key question, because those independents swing back and forth. In 2008, we had over 2/3 of all the independents, and they swung towards us, in part because we had a message and in part because we had the messenger. We need to demonstrate leadership. We need to be very clear about what our agenda is going to be. We need to connect once again with that constituency in a way that affects their lives, in a way that's relevant to them. I think we've lost some of that relevance. We've got to get it back.
Former Senate Majority Leader Tom Daschle, thank you very much for joining us. Adam Green, thank you very much for joining us. I know how hard you worked on some of these campaigns, Adam. I know how tough a night that was for you. Thank you both.